Students learn in all different and unique ways, visually, verbally, and physically. But if these students are all so unique, why are we all still being tested the same way? A standardized test is any form of examination that 1. Requires all test takers to answer the same set of questions in the same way, and 2. Is scored in a standard or consistent manner that allows for a relative comparison and measurement of student performance. Which raises a lot of questions. Exams are considered an important part of the education system, and many educators consider it one of the best ways to assess academic achievement of students. But are standardized tests really the best way to do this? Can the same test represent the intelligence of all students? To check if these standardized tests are representative of student mastery of classroom concepts, we compiled CAS test scores, otherwise known as California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress, and graduation rates of high schools in the Anaheim Union High School District that have a similar standing to Loera High School. While analyzing this data side by side, we noticed a discrepancy between CAS test scores and graduation rates at Loera High School. The fact that a majority of students were still graduating despite such poor test scores indicated a problem with testing and its accuracy, which completely defeats the whole purpose of such exams.
So, we decided to focus on how Loera could develop a better method of assessing students' mastery of academic concepts to address this issue. We initially identified one-size-fits-all assessments as the root cause. And although all these supporting questions are important, these are the ones that are essential to the research of this project.
What is the purpose of standardized testing? What is so bad about standardized testing?
Before we make any radical changes, we first have to understand the system that is currently being implemented. So why is there such a push to getting rid of standardized tests? What's so bad about this style of testing? Well, for one, standardized tests have a hard time measuring abstract characteristics or skills such as creativity, critical thinking, and collaboration, because standardized testing puts all students on the same scale. Teachers began to teach to the test rather than to expand a student's mind about the world. And additionally, in our research, we found out that standardized tests became more prominent through the No Child Left Behind Act of 2001. This act essentially gave more money to schools that could provide higher test scores on standardized tests. Because now there was a monetary value associated with test scores, schools have more of an initiative to value test scores over anything else. Teacher evaluations started to become associated with student performance on standardized tests, and consequently, they teach to the test instead of focusing on actual learning. The newly introduced standardized format, along with computerized scoring, additionally aimed to reduce the potential for favoritism in subjective evaluation. Basically, they wanted to get rid of biases. However, the reality is that subjective human judgment enters the testing process at various stages, such as question selection and rubric creation.
But these standardized tests are not all bad. This style of testing students was created to level the playing field because they wanted to see all students graded on the same principle so that they could compare the results of all students in schools. So these tests are actually living up to one promise of allowing educators to compare students across the board, which give teachers valuable information about how effective their teaching methods are and what they need to improve on.
With this information, we changed our direction as a civic group. Instead of trying to abolish a nationwide system of standardized tests, our efforts will go towards capitalizing on the positives and minimizing the negatives of standardized tests within our school. Which leads into our next question. How are Loera's teachers currently evaluating student performance? In order to find this out, we sent out surveys to teachers and recorded their responses.
But to get a deeper understanding of how our teachers are evaluating student mastery of classroom concepts, we conducted an interview of the department chairs of the core academic subjects, such as math, English, and science. So what do teachers think about standardized testing? and what are they doing to assess their students instead?
It lets you compare school with school within the same district, and district within the same state, and then state to state. That's what the standardization means when you talk about standardized testing. It's this idea that we want to compare students with each other. Not do we want to see how well the student gained the knowledge.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Okay.
Unequivocally that in all of these subjects, the best way to measure students' understanding of the material is through project-based learning. So in these classes, we do actual simulations. I often have students who can do the accounting portion no problem, and yet they don't know the names of the concepts they're applying. This is basically what those objective questions are.
I understand.
Right. Know what you're doing at a meta level and what those things are called, and they can do the work without necessarily knowing at a meta level what's going on. Teachers will teach to the test, like an AP test. That's a standardized test. Everybody takes the exact same AP test. Well, so you take an AP class, and one of the goals of your teachers, and I teach an AP course, one of my goals as a teacher is to get students to pass that test. So there is some focus on the standardized nature of it, the multiple choice and the repetition and the repetition and the repetition and the repetition and the repetition, which doesn't necessarily translate into, I've learned these concepts on a more experienced level.
Standardized testing? Yeah, so I think that anytime there's a standardized test, you get a couple of different things, right? Some people are just going to take the test to be compliant because they're sort of forced to sit down from 8 to 12 and take a test, and so, well, I have to do it, but they're not really very interested in what their score is going to be. The other thing is that it's limited in terms of what you can actually assess. You can't really test critical thinking, or at least that much. And even content area knowledge is just so wide and varied. You just never really know how well a student really knows someone based on a standardized test where it's one size fits all. So I don't know that people are really motivated to do it, and I don't think that it's a great way of assessing. Well, obviously for us in VAPA, the biggest way to assess is going to be through performance tasks, right? So projects, the way for my students in band, the way they play, for Mr. Gray's students, the way they sing, for the visual arts students, assessing their work would be assessing their photography or their painting or their ceramics projects. So it'd be really very real world assessments, just how well they can function and how well they can, achieve their art form.
To me, the best way to assess students' understanding of the subject area is by performance-based tests, not necessarily standards-based or the traditional multiple choice. Because I think that students should have a variety of ways to demonstrate their understanding, whether they're doing it through a collage or a project, or they're doing it through a writing assignment, but some student choice. So I like to use performance-based assessments.
Do you think that standardized testing is affecting the way students view learning and their way of retaining information?
Absolutely, because you're testing pretty much regurgitation.
Well, science is obviously very complex in the fact that you've got content knowledge, but there's also skills that we need to assess. So it's not just about what we're learning, but how we're learning it and how students can then apply that in new situations in terms of the skills. So we need to, it needs to be, so ultimately it needs to be a combination of assessment. Obviously you can use a standardized assessment or like a multiple choice test to focus in on the content. But when you want to do things like skills and see how students use evidence to form an argument, or how they are able to analyze data, that needs to be something typically that's either going to be more short answer, essay-based, performance-based. Okay. It could be through a lab. So there's a number of different ways that we need to be assessing.
Okay.
I think it's okay for us to go, when we want to look at the content, we want to look kind of at that big picture, we want to get that glimpse to do those multiple choice types of assessments.
Okay.
But we need to do more than that. And even within those multiple choice assessments, we need to make sure that we are doing things that look at skills as well. So it could be even a data analysis question that's asked through the lens of a multiple choice assessment. But we need to have a wide variety of assessments, because you can't look at all of those different aspects, content and skills, just through multiple choice assessments. We have to use a wide variety of assessments.
Okay.
In science now, it's not just about the content, but again, it's about the skills, and it's also about how we see connections between what we're learning in different sciences and the kind of, what they call them, cross-cutting concepts.
I don't think that the standardized test is a reflection of really what the student knows. I think that students tend to not take it as seriously as they should in order to get results to really assess what they know. Well, I think that you need a variety of ways to assess a student's ability to demonstrate what they know. So I agree with standardized testing as long as it fits the classes that the student has taken, because that helps us all kind of gauge where everybody is. I also think we need presentations or projects, because students may do better in that kind of environment than a standardized test. And then I also think you need regular assessments within the classroom. So if you can give a student a variety of assessments, you'll be able to have a better understanding of really what they know.
With that, even as a teacher, if you show up every day and you do everything I ask and you can't pass my test, where's the disconnect?
Most of our teachers use a form of standardized testing, such as multiple choice questions, mixing with projects, performance tests, and other evaluations that allow students to be creative. In our interviews, we found that the Math 5 classes have a different testing strategy than other teachers.
5 specifically is what we call standardized based grading, which means that the quizzes, each question is a certain standard. So then we grade on that standard. So if you don't do well on that one, you can retake it until you do get it. That's what that's about. Okay. So that as you move forward, you kind of redo the parts you don't get immediately, so that you can move and build your knowledge forward. And I think they do that in the Math 5.
Okay. Do you guys know if that gonna expand to other level as well?
It is. It was supposed to expand to Math 4, but we got new curriculum, so it's going to start, I think, next year. It's very difficult to set up with our grade book, so it's a lot of man hours to get it going. I believe that Ms. Turner does a version of it, and also Math 3 right now does a version of it as well. They do objective-based grading, and Ms. Turner does as well.
Concepts.
So, yeah, exactly.
I'm really interested in when you mentioned that in our Math 5 class we have skills-based learning. Do you know if there are any other examples of these teachers taking on new strategies to help level out that testing field for students?
I think right now Math 5 is the most prevalent. We are looking at expanding that potentially to some other subject areas, and utilizing more of the type of rubric that they're utilizing for that scoring system. One of the things I really like about that scoring system is traditionally in a math class, if you complete an assignment or you complete a test and you get the answer wrong, you get all the points off, right? So you've gotten this question wrong. One of the nice things is with the rubric they use, say a student has mastered some of the steps to get to that process, they just get the wrong answer because their multiplication was off or their addition was off or something like that. They're still getting partial credit for the pieces that they knew versus the overall answer. And so then you can work on getting the right answer, right? But they've mastered some of the steps, that's the biggest piece in getting to the right answer. So they're still getting partial credit for that. Those are the types of things I'd like to see more, like, okay, I'm mastering these steps. What's preventing me from getting to that correct answer? And it narrows it down a little bit more to help the teachers be able to help them a little bit more better understand.
There are plans to expand this model of objective-based testing to other math classes in future years. With this testing strategy, teachers and students can more effectively understand what area needs additional support and teaching. However, this objective-based testing cannot be applied to all subjects in its current form. The social sciences, for example, do not have objectives that build upon each other like math does.
Our interviews also helped us find out that teachers meet in PLC groups, aka professional learning communities. In these groups, teachers compare and contrast test results in order to find out which lessons are most effective for students. As aforementioned, these are the positive ways that educators can use standardized tests. In addition to the PLCs, Loera's administration also implements goals to bring emphasis to real-life skills that students can use outside of the classroom. School-wide initiatives such as the 5 C's and the SLOs bring attention to real-world skills that students should be gaining as well as learning academic material.
So at the beginning of this year, we actually, throughout the course of this year, we've presented 3 modules to our staff called Beliefs modules. They are specifically, they were modules that identified specific instructional strategies that we were wanting teachers to implement more of in the classroom. Those strategies help all students, be better engaged and learn. So we've rolled out 3 of those belief modules. There will be 1 more before the end of the year, but they specifically targeted and outlined strategies such as encouraging students to speak 30% of the class time versus it just being all teacher driven, right? Different collaborative strategies were identified in those modules. So there are some specific strategies that were laid out that we are seeing more and more we're wanting to really be well implemented in the classroom.
The people that are disengaged, yeah, the ones that, yeah. And what about them specifically?
So do you think they also have a chance at changing their outlook on school?
They do, and especially the young ones, and you see them around, and we offer them plenty of opportunities. What we work very hard to do is just to, if they can achieve just some success and see that it's not, and build on it, we have a chance. But the further they get in and the further they get away from success and finding something that has meaning to them, it's harder to pull them back in. And there are kids here that don't do well that aren't troublemakers at all. You know what I mean? They're nice, polite, good people, but we're not meeting their needs for one reason or another.
What our research found was that teachers are already implementing new techniques to evaluate student performance, as seen with the Math 5 classes and the school-wide initiatives. But all of this goes unnoticed by the students of Loera.
For our actions, we decided to raise awareness among the students about what efforts the teachers are making to accurately evaluate student knowledge and their efforts to improve their lessons every day. We created an Instagram page that posts effects of standardized tests as well as quotes from teachers that let students know they care. We additionally created an infographic that circulated around social media in order to raise more awareness about standardized tests. If the students are more informed about their education, there is a chance that they are more motivated to do well in school and to learn, not for a test, but for themselves. Additionally, this infographic shows how important standardized tests such as the CAS and SBAC are to evaluating our school. In addition to raising awareness among students, we contacted Michael Matsuda, the Anaheim Union High School District Superintendent, and informed him of our research. We offered what we thought might be the next best steps that the education system should take in order to more accurately evaluate student performance. In the classroom, teachers should move towards standards-based grading so that student weaknesses are better identified and addressed by the teachers. This involves breaking down the standards set by the state of California into individual topics/concepts within the gradebook. Teachers may adjust a percentage of each standard based on what they believe is more or less important. This may be implemented into an AP and/or regular/honors classroom. In addition, teachers should start implementing objective-based testing in the classroom, which is currently only in Math 5. This involves testing students on specific concepts/objectives that they need to meet. Students are then able to retake the test if they fail. However, we believe that retakes should be limited and harder to motivate students to actually learn the concepts or to study for the first test. Each standard and concept is then built upon in each subsequent test. In other words, previous concepts will reappear in following tests to help students retain information. If public schools like Loera could receive further funding, then the school could begin to implement its own version of the Adaptive Smarter Balance Assessment, which automatically adapts to the student's ability. If such assessments could be conducted on a more local level, then the school could quickly retrieve data on student performance. Such information could benefit the school and teachers vastly by pinpointing where students tend to struggle and are strongest at. The school's version of the SBAC wouldn't hurt the students, but if implemented, its importance should be emphasized for accuracy. Administrators and teachers should also further emphasize the importance of statewide standardized tests, such as the CASP, to the students.
I think there's a lot of things that SBAC doesn't test. I don't know if you're familiar with the California State Dashboard at all, but it is the way that the state it's different criteria the state looks at and measures each school in each district to kind of give them a, for lack of a better term, an overall score to identify either these are the areas you have shown proficiency in as a school, right? SBAC is one of those categories that is very heavily hit on there. So I think in that regard, as far as the way the people outside in the state view schools, it's critical in that regard. But as far as what's truly of value to students, that's totally different, right? Parents looking at a school and they want to know, is this a good school to send my kid to, right? Well, where is great. But if they look at this dashboard and they're like, oh, these indicators kind of look bad to us, right? Then it's going to reflect negatively on the school and the students that go there, even though it's not bad. You see what I'm saying? So that's why SBAC is kind of important. Last year we did note that a number of students who got 11th graders, who got 3 or higher on AP tests didn't score proficient on SBAC. Like the seriousness of the importance of the test, this is where the importance falls into place.
Does the school have any specific goals toward raising SBAC scores?
Well, that happens, like for you, what grade? You're a senior. But, from the time you get here till, let's say, the 11th graders are taking the test, the goal is to build upon their knowledge base and their skill level, so when they get the test, it isn't such a, oh my God, what are we going to do to get ready? You're ready. You know what I mean? Show us what you know on there. So that's a goal. So it's a 3-year process, basically.